Here we go. The theme for the show today is heart openings. It's been a lot of heart opening through our whole experience over the last at least 11 years, since 2012. I thought I'd get on here today, and please let me know if the sound is okay. We had some trouble with the app. I'd appreciate it. Jana and Ernestine, see you on December the 8th, 9th, and 10th. No. All right, the sound's good. Well, we spend a lot of time talking about the things that we should be doing and modalities and processes, and they all make sense. I mean, they all provide tools. But I feel like that this 1111 is a little low sound, but I made my volume. What's low? Let's get it right. Is it the music that's low or the voice? How's that? Is that a little better? All right, how do I do that? Let's try this. Test. How's that? Is that better? Test. Yeah, we're going to do it. Let's do it right. Let's see. Better. Okay, better. All right, let's start over. Boom. Yeah, I feel like that it's time to just let it all hang out and really start to express some things that we haven't been able to, due to the conditioning and the programming that we had, especially if you're a man. And maybe that's where I'm going to go with this today, is maybe some reflections from the masculine. So I'm going to do a little bit of it, and with a song. All right. Let's see. Hey, everybody. 22 people in the house. This is kind of coming from the masculine when I wrote it. It is coming from the masculine. Ooh. My pain is growing gently. Take this space from me. That's what I say every day. The light is growing stronger, and I'm coming back in my song. I learned humiliation and humility all one, and servitude birth freedom in the end. To live a little longer is fine with me. Every day's a soul's beneficiary. There's only me. There's only me in this holy darkness, and shadows bleeding holy diamond light. A liquid golden white light frequencies. The sun is shining a little brighter today. My heart and mind's collapsing into one. A million times, a million new discoveries. And always we love each other in the ice and in the flames. So just remember, our name is love. Our name is love. It's okay to talk about it. All right, let's get the blood going. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about heart openings. I know there's been a lot of comments that have come out of my mouth when it comes to, getting too focused on the fluffy love and light. Um, Information and code is moving so quickly. We're learning so fast, learning a process very quickly. Learning to assess and reassess, take a breath before we react or respond. Allowing the energy to work with us, allowing the energy to work without us pushing any buttons or forcing anything. We're all coming into this new environment of the third energy being the prominent force that it should be. That whole understanding that um, something's bigger than us. There's something bigger than us, and that's something that I believe makes the Trinity energy go, and that's what's definitely going on this earth, regardless of anything out there. This internal eternal work that we're doing is having great effect on our shared experience. But still, it all begins and ends with us individually, and how we in our relationship that we have with ourselves. Over the years, if we go back to 2012, 13, 14, 15, I'd say maybe 16, 17, there was always a lot written about the emerging divine feminine, the reemergence of the divine feminine, the qualities of the divine feminine. And it was very easy to kind of validate that intel coming from so many sisters was accurate, because you could see that the deficient energy on the earth in this patriarchal narcissistic environment, where service to self was dominating, that these qualities of the feminine that the sisters were anchoring in and conveying to us through their downloads and transmissions, it was easy to see that, oh yeah, this makes sense. And there was talk. I mean, there was always talk about the divine masculine. The divine masculine, a lot in the early years, I remember, there was a lot of things. Hurry up, we're waiting on you. Where are you? Da 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 da. But I've noticed in my own life, and through observing others in the work that I do, an emergence, or I guess it would be a reemergence of the divine masculine, um, the true divine masculine. Energies that are in all of us that had been dormant, just as the divine feminine energies had been dormant. Um, And so, you know, it was kind of for me a surprise to see the energy of the divine masculine um, start to emerge. Um, and I feel like that 2023, um, from my perspective, um, was the year, I guess you could say, that he really started to come out. Um, if I look at this year, January and February were like a cold, dark winter. And one of the things that I experienced and that I've realized was necessary for all of us because the divine masculine uh, was dormant in all of us is that when you think of the the two energetic genders from our perspective here, and we think of divine feminine, we think of this, purity and this white golden light, that just fits with that, you know, kind of like Glinda, the Good Witch of the North in the Wizard of Oz. And then, at first glance, let's be honest, a lot of the energies that we would pick up on when we would think of masculine or male or divine masculine energies would be uh, the opposite. you know, I mean, this was a realm that we constructed that created that element as the victimizer. And so there was a certain putridness, there was a certain distortion there. Um, and obviously it worked the other way too, but I mean, this is to me how it kind of progressed. And as we got into this year, I know the first 2 months of this year, I spent those 60 days in intense, very intense private um, processing, um, both of the dimensional and the experiential. And, you know, um, it was some deep, dark stuff. I've had, as many people know, because I've been public, I've had my share of experiences in my past. Some people might say wild or, thrill seeking or, crazy or whatever the case is, reckless or whatever. Especially in the early years of Soulogy when I was talked about it more coming off of the streets. But in terms of bringing it back to the divine masculine or to the emerging masculine that's in all of us, um, I see a lot of brothers out there starting to step up. Um, I think of a lot of different shows that I've done in the last year where they've come on to the show and they've talked about some really deep things. I think about the one brother, Daniel DeClick, the French smoker that we call him. When he comes on, he's always smoking like a Frenchman that he is. And he talked about some pretty dark things. He admitted um, his his sexual distortion and where it took him. And I won't go into all the details. It's a hell of a show. Um, and then I could point to a lot of different men. Um, and then I can look at my own experience. There's Daniel. Good to see you. Um, and so, you know, I started to realize, and a lot of this I just put together recently because whenever I get an epiphany or a revelation of any substantial weight, the past and the present and the future merge. And what that means is you could say all my insight, intuitive into, let's say, what we call the future, all of my experiences from the past and my present state all kind of combined, and all that information turns into one language. And so this has happened very recently, where I started to really understand that our our role, our journey, um, was to go into the deepest recesses and abscesses and crevices of the darkest corners of reality, of the experience of the simulation, and to not only go through those actions, but to eventually, as we have to do with everything, come back to those spaces and love those spaces as much as we would love the purest white light, because in fact they're one and the same thing. We spent a lot of time as men. Uh, we did spend a lot of time as men um, putting things, and we know this. This isn't rocket science. You ask any woman what they want from a man, and it's like, open up, let me know what's going on. I could speak to this maybe a little better with something I started to write just a couple days ago. Um, it's not victim consciousness. It's the beginning of a song that will lead to what I'm going to connect it to. He's taken every arrow ever thrown. If he cried, he died, crucified, still expected to be superhuman. Like every form of a soul's expression, I got to believe in myself to lift my gifts. And what love is expands from the human experience, the living in infinite intelligence, um, beyond human comprehensions. Even as the energetic field completes us, perfect imperfections perfecting, the highest affections ever created. I am a man. That's as far as I've gotten. But, you know, I feel like that, using Daniel as an example again, going into these spaces and talking about things that men haven't talked about um, is a really deep waters. You know, we have heard, and it was the catalyst for this. At the physical human level, the catalyst for this great awakening was the feminine energy coming out and saying, "This is how I feel by God, and I'm going to be heard, and I'm going to you know pull my power. I'm not going to participate anymore. I'm going to build a new earth, kind of thing." And so we've had a lot of familiarity with that. Obviously, the feminine energies in us, which you know more or less, you can see a little more clearly in the physical gender in general, not in all cases, by any means. But I think diving deep into the masculine's feelings um, is really almost like the last bastion of unmined gold, or you could say unmined shadow, because they are one and the same. That shadow is the gold, and the gold is the shadow. But and I think, yeah, um, this is a area as Todd's changing and Soulogy's changing, and Todd's contribution to Soulogy's changing, and I believe that'll show itself soon. I don't know where it's going, but I mean, I'm speaking in terms of like what I would like to do in any programs that I'm involved in terms of being a host or MC or whatever. Is to start to dig into these hidden feelings, hidden experiences, hidden traumas, uh, the journey of the masculine. Because if we look at everything in the energetic field and we break it down to the last of the let's say the last or the most formidable polarity, especially in this dualistic setup that we had. Um, but if we look at that, um, it comes down to the last balance being the masculine and the feminine. And we've all had our experiences. Uh, One thing I've noticed is that um, one side doesn't understand the journey of the other side, and part of the reason for that is because the one gender doesn't see themselves in the other gender. And I believe that we've hit a space here, an opportunity where we can actually access. We talk about accessing the Akashic record or accessing the morphogenic field. Uh, how about accessing through our empathic abilities, through our witnessing and through our self examination and self introspection? How about can we tap into that which we are that we didn't know we were or that we didn't feel we were? Like, say, in my case, what was it like for the feminine's journey? And then flip that. What has it been like for the masculine's journey? I think this is very valuable information. I really do. Because the fact it hasn't been talked about, and because of the role that the throat chakra has in this experience at this time in this realm. Um, sorry about that. Maybe is it low? Let's try again. Is it low? I think. Let me know if it's too low, or try turning up your volume. But yeah, I really feel like that it's time to get this on the table. Um, I really do, and I feel like that, like everything else, it has to start somewhere. It has to start with someone, and we're all that someone. Every one of us. Uh, every one of us has this suppressed masculine voice, um, and it's time to take the lid off. This is my opinion. We've dug into a lot of the other stuff. We've even dug into the inner child, but the masculine journey in this realm uh, has not been talked about. And again, I think it's high time. So, without even knowing what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about it. Uh, so, my soul said, label this heart openings. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it should say heart openings of the masculine energy in all of us. And I want to make that clear. Um, I'm just as much a divine masculine as every person on the face of the earth. Um, how much of it am I tapped into? How much of it is someone else tapped into? That's a different discussion. But first and foremost, and I notice this oddly enough in women. It's very obvious in men, but I didn't notice this in women for a long time. But certainly this year, and that is this competition thing. You know, the male has been ingrained from day one with this competition thing. I remember as a little kid playing in my backyard with my imaginary friends very clearly, and we were playing war games. It was during the Vietnam War, and it was all war games, guns and killing, and not even feeling it. It was just like somebody just turned it on. I mean, all the toys were led that direction. So the competition thing uh, really comes down to judgment. It was a way that we designed in the coding of this experience to promote judgment, and we know that at this point, one of the things I think that's kind of come to light is that we talked about um, compassion, unconditional love, compassion for years and years and years, like many things that we talked about, many catchphrases that to know it, uh, or I should say to think that it's known because we can say it and think we understand it. That's a totally different thing than actually experiencing it. I've experienced a tremendous growth this year, and coming out of for all of us, a powerful 2022 that really set this year up. A lot of people know my story from the end of last year from Soulogy Fest 2. And then I ended up in Houston a couple days before the first of the year. And like I said, I look at everything energetically now. This information's fresh, it's clean, it's landing today, you could say. And I look at the first 2 months of the year, and like I said, it was like a cold, hard winter. I would be walking the streets where I was homeless 10 years prior. where I spent a lot of time, and I got in a lot of trouble. Um, you know, it was weird walking the same streets. I'd go out 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and just start walking on the same streets. And, my soul's turned on. I'm trying to commune to the trees and the universe and saying, why am I walking 10 years later in the same neighborhood that I was when I woke up 10 years ago? And, you know, and all this stuff was going on. And I started to receive the information that I was to retrace my steps much more so than just in the physical sense of retracing your steps, but to actually retrace my steps on an energetic basis. Well, 10 years before that, when I was walking the streets, like I said, there was um, a lot going on for me. And I'm just going to tell you this as a backdrop. It's not victim consciousness. It's nothing like that. It's a backdrop. I said many times over the years that my experience, I proved that you can lose your fucking mind and wake up at the same time. And during that period when I was homeless, walking those same streets, I mean, I was 50 years old at the time. And I got into, I think it was 8 fights in like 7 months, in bars and what have you. I also engaged in a lot of um, things, um, things that were self-harming, we would say. And I'm not advocating or denigrating anything. This is all an experience, a very meaningful experience, and it's the experience itself that teaches us. And I believe in sharing those experiences, such as trying to open the heart collectively or contribute to it collectively from my own soul of our masculine energy. So during that time, I did, a lot of drugs. I drank a lot. Um, I, basically sex, drugs, rock and roll. I mean, and the interesting thing was, is I was communing every day too. I mean, I was in a constant communion most of the day, and at night I would, go out and run with the devil. Now, 10 years go by. It's the first of this year. I'm walking the same streets. Why am I walking these streets? And then my soul starts to tell me, you are basically burdened. You're burdened as a man. You're burdened by your experiences. You are in judgment of your experiences. Um, you are uh, in shame of your experiences, and it's holding your light down. And I said, well, okay, I won't be in judgment. and my soul said, no, 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 that's not how it's going to work here. You're going to revisit every single nook and cranny of your previous experience, but you're going to do it 10 years later from a different perspective. And I kind of freaked out. And I said, well, wait a minute. I don't think I can go do all those things that I did. And my soul said, no, you don't have to do them. You are going to revisit the energy of each of those things. Anything that is still anchoring you to the old grid. Anything that's still anchoring you to this false identity of a fallen man. Um, so I didn't really know how it was going to go down, but um, I will say that I had a couple of nights where I went to I went too far and drank too much and ended up falling or something happening. But most of the experiences, or the vast majority of the experiences, were uh, I would go into let's say I'd walk up a street, turn a corner, and there was this. That's true. Um, there was this bar, and I realized that that was the very place I started. It was like the third night I was homeless. The first 3 days I spent in the hotel room, and then the fourth night I got invited to a place. It was like a hippie house with 12 hippies. It smelled like ecstatic dance. Nobody wore deodorant. It was pretty funny. So what had happened on that fourth night was, after all the hippies went out, I went down the street to this bar and I danced. That's what I was doing, a lot of dancing back then. And I realized that's where it started. And then all these memories came in, and my body started to feel all these memories. My body started to feel, my physical body felt the things that occurred. My mental body felt the weight of it. My emotional body felt the pain and the suffering of it. And this went on for most of January and February. And it was what I call the brutal honesty of the soul. And so in this dialogue with Big Todd and Little Todd, um, I started to ask questions, and I started to understand uh, what was happening and why. And I say this to anybody, but I will say this especially to the brothers out there, that I came to understand that in order for me to bring this into equilibrium and to maximize my potential and power as a man, um, that I would reach a place where I would love these things, these putrid things, these dark things, where I would love them as much as I would love the purest, most divine episode I've ever had, you know, and that I would reach that place. And I was puzzled, and I said, I don't understand, I don't see why I don't see why I got to go through this again, or even though I don't have to do it, you know, literally, that I'm going to be revisiting these energetics. So that's what happened. What happened was, and even expanded. It was a multi-dimensional series of experiences. And I can just give you an example because this didn't happen in my life. But I remember one night, it was in regard to like sexual distortion. And um, I think what happened that night was I was walking and walking, and it came in, and basically I was told that you need to go home and lay in the bed. I'm like, oh, this is good. But what happened was that my soul had me go do that because I went into a deep, I would call it a dimensional, conscious dimensional experience. And in that experience, I became several different aspects. I became a young boy, uh, who was laying on a like a examination table. Um, Door opens, you can smell alcohol, cigarettes. Then I feel a rough beard around, my body. And so, in that instance, or that part of it, I was the abused or the victim, and I felt everything. I felt everything. I felt the innocence crushed. I felt the understanding that wow, this doesn't make any sense to me. This shouldn't be happening. I thought this person, I could trust him. It was very intense. And and then I was shifted to something I would never associate with um, in any recollection of my lifetime, and that was being the stubble-faced, drunk, cigarette-smelling uh, victimizer that came in to rape a little boy, and I was it was in his shoes, and I was sick. I felt sick. I felt, but I had to stay with it. I was instructed to stay with it until, and these aren't just words, because again, we can say something and say that we know it because we can say it, but it's to actually experience it that that really brings the coding or turns the coding on. So I was to take this um, opportunity to bring that little boy and that man, the abuser and the victim, however you want to put it, and I was eventually brought to a point where they were one and the same. And with that came a whole different vantage point when it comes to what is love, what is wisdom, what is power, what is perfection. And hang on one second. Um, Let me get back on it. Okay, so yeah, I ended up having a higher uh, vantage point, and I was able to tap into, um, like who we are, and what we're a part of, and that we designed this thing, and that everything that occurs in this thing is coding, it's information, it's wisdom, it's data. This is what we came to do. Now, did that make me feel any better? Did it make me feel any less weird? No, no. In time, it's become more and more, you could say, balanced, all right? More and more understood, less charge, whatever you want to say. But, uh, but it's true. And I believe that the root, uh, I've seen several people talking about the root. Of course, obviously, over the years, the root chakra is being cleared, and then, like everything else that comes back, you got to do it again. You got to do it again. But this time feels, this 1111, it feels totally different to me. It feels like, this is it. Maybe this is why I'm going to get on here and continue from this day forward for a while to initiate um, the masculine voice in anyone and everyone that wants to stand up and support that and allow them to tell their story, okay, and how it felt uh, to come to terms with this thing. How did we um, bring into equilibrium the fact that being a man such a stigmatized label. Oh, you're a man. Oh, that's why you do that. You're a man. That has been embedded in the the male and the female, in the masculine part of us, and basically shrouded our true divine masculine light. Um, so I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but so maybe that's why I'm coming out, or whatever you want to call it, or this is something that's surfacing because the bottom of the root is being cleaned out, and that's huge because we know that in this realm, the way it was designed, it was to create such a um, distortion with our sexual energy uh, that we wouldn't go play with it. Basically, you know, we wouldn't be able to tap into the wisdom of the power that we have that is available and contained within our bodies, particularly that which comes from the seed or the root, the trunk of the channel of the chakras. Um, so we know that that is where both genders, every incarnated soul, that's where the primary um, um, interference came. Now, when you consider that, and you consider that in respect to the male or the masculine journey, and that the characteristic of the stereotypical male was to not talk about these things, not to talk about anything, not to talk about any emotions, the story, right? But in particular, the sexual distortion. Okay. So if it was the main place that was attacked, so to speak, or shrouded or interfered with, and on top of that, you're talking about the side of us, or let's just talk about like as a man, uh, this is the part that's the most hidden. I don't want anyone to know that I'm looking at porn. I don't want anyone to know that I found my dad's penthouse magazine at 15, and that's the first, or 14. That's the first time I had an orgasm. Um, I don't want people to know my sexual experiences. I don't want people to know my fantasies. I don't want people, like, on men, this is some heavy stuff. It's very heavy. Um, it really is. Um, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. It really is. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Um, so if they're not talking about things in general, this will be the last thing they want to talk about. But it is where the the last remnants of um, the blockages or the shroud uh, that has been over the root chakra in the male side of us, and we can dissipate this as we've done everything that we've worked our way through, all of us, by speaking about it, by talking about it. You see, we all kind of know that we have something in common. We're all soul. But we also have something in common, which is actually more provable at this level of consciousness that we're at. And that is the physical experience, the pain and the suffering. And this is where I believe that the real masculine energy is emerging from. It's emerging from uh, many things, not just misogyny or sexism, but homophobia, pornography, um, everything, every single thing there is. Um, the the hold that the programming had on the male was was just absolutely overpowering. And I know because I've talked to a lot of men, and I can reflect on my own experiences. Uh, it literally drove virtually everything in their life, pretty much. Now, I don't mean that everything was turned into a sexual situation. What I mean is that the drive to to utilize that, the urge, was so powerful. Uh, Even though it wasn't pleasant, even though it wasn't lasting, it was just something I just want to say that in a man's perspective was very overpowering. So it could be, you know now we look back and look at some of the things and the habits that we have. Like, why are you opening this door for this woman? Why are you asking this woman to go to dinner? You know, Everything was almost like setting things up to get to the candy, right? And it's not just about women. It's about could be many other distortions, or in a distorted manner, things that are even from the human perspective more putrid or that type of thing. But I really feel like it's time to talk about it. Um, I believe that we're reaching a level of maturity collectively. You could call it soul consciousness, that we can handle the truth. Um, we can definitely handle the truth. Uh, we need this masculine energy to construct that which has been dreamed or designed by our feminine part. And the more clear that the male is, the more constructive and wise and powerful he will be. And that works for an individual, that works for a team of men, that works for all of us, the masculine in all of us. I thought for a long time that the uh, the biggest conflict that the man had was with the female. But during this year, and I'd say, maybe 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, I actually I talked about it. I had a seizure. I haven't had a seizure in something like 12 years. And I had about 150 to 200 seizures from 15 years old to 50. And I had a seizure 3 or 4 months ago. And in that seizure, I went out of my body. It was only the second time ever that I was conscious during the seizure. And I saw something that changed my mind about what I just said. And that was I saw the biggest conflict was the man versus the man, not only within himself, but with other men. And this goes back to that competition and the judging and the besting and the winning the war and all that stuff. And it really made me think. Number one, it came through in the way it did, which was to get my attention, and I realized that the real battle for the masculine, and that's for every man and every woman and every child, but the real battle for the masculine was within himself, masculine to masculine. And so I went to work, um, and really started to look at men differently. Really started to look at because up to that point, I walk into a place, I see a bunch of sisters. Hello, how are you? You look nice today. It's a whole different thing. You don't walk into a place and there's a group of brothers and go, "Hey, brother, how you doing? You look fine today." Da, da. It's not like that. I used to say on the show for years that you can go to a local gym locker room, and a woman can walk into that locker room full of women, and she might know 2 of 10 and say, I'm having a problem. And they all get around her and they're like, let's talk about it. Imagine a man walking into a men's locker room and saying, and he knows a couple of them and the rest are strangers, saying, "Hey, I'm having some problems." It doesn't happen. There's been way too much judgment, and we know this. We're all being held accountable by our souls to move into full blown 100% compassion, no prejudice, no bias, no bullshit, and 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 move into a non-judgmental state, to stay in our own lane, to honor the power and responsibility that we have as quantum thought creators. What we're thinking is the most powerful thing there is. It's more powerful than a word or an action, even though those are powerful. Okay. But the thought, without the thought, without the thought, the other two can't happen. So it's important, I think, to dig into, um, what does this look like? We know the new earth is different. We know the feminine part of us is different, uh, and the masculine part of us is different. And what does it look like? There's a lot of opinions about what a man should be, and many of those opinions come from the sisters. But just like if you ask a man what a woman should be, well, if I don't know your journey and you don't know mine, I don't have the authority or the wherewithal to tell you what that man or woman should be. So why don't we ask the man? Why don't we ask the man who's had the experience of going down into the gates of hell and being that perpetrator, victimizer, victim, because that's just as heavy. And I can tell you right now, there are many, many brothers out there who at a very young age were, let's just be frank, were raped and otherwise, just like sisters. Okay, and that's a totally different trip. It's not saying one is over the other. It's not saying that at all. But I'm saying we've had a lot of conversation and dialogue about one and not very much about the other. And so digging into those to the experiences and the thoughts is going to bring some real gold. And you know, as the days go on, I'm going to invite more and more men to come on in a non-traditional way. If you look at podcasting or platforms like this since 2012, and it's always been an enigma to me because, depending on what year you want to start, 2012 up to today, you're looking at, um, we'll look at Soulogy. I say this all the time. If you look at SoulogyNetwork.com, if you look at Soulogy Fest, uh, if you look at the Soulogy group on Facebook, if you look at the other platforms we have, you're anywhere from 75 to 90% female, and yet the majority of the podcast are men. So I'm not looking for men in the traditional role. I'm looking for men to come in and open up the heart, and I'll be willing to do it with you, uh, and talk about their journey, talk about things that we would never want to talk about. And I'll give you an example. If you ever have the opportunity to really talk to a man that's got his walls down, which means, just like for her, just like they said, the feminine can come out when she feels safe. Well, it works the same way for the masculine. You want to ask a man how he feels about the length and girth of his penis. You want to ask a man about how, uh, you know, fearful he might be of his performance. I mean, these sound like trivial issues, but they're not. These are just examples of him as a whole, because the same thing would apply at work. The same thing would apply, as his mother sees him, or as his daughter sees him, or as his partner sees him. Um, we can dig into these topics. We're in an accelerated transformational period, and the coding is coming through at warp speed. And I've never met Lauren Giorgio. I know a lot of people, particularly sisters, follow her over the years. But she wrote something 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she talked about it all coming down to the mundane human experience. And I love that. And mundane not being a bad word, just to me, it meant like mundane. When you compare the human aspect to the multidimensional aspects, it's kind of like mundane. It's like, no, where's all the bells and whistles in that? But but it's interesting because that that's what it's going to take. It's going to take, for this is my opinion, to at least consider the value of talking about what our life was like, and where is it at now, and how are these changes affecting us. I can tell you, in the last 10 days, I've been on my back so many times, for hours and hours, lights out, middle of the day, should be doing stuff, and my soul's saying, no, you need to sit right here. There's some massive things happening with all of us, and I believe that the masculine part of us is where the biggest earthquakes, inner earthquakes, tremors are coming from. And with the coding that's become available, um, real time, I've started to hone in on this, and what it feels like is that it needs to be opened up, and in the same manner that it was uh, for our feminine aspects. That part of us, the she part of us, can speak if she feels safe. Well, the same works for the he part of us. And in that space, by the way, because this is something I feel, I feel like, number one, before I say this, that it is, and I have said this in the last month or so, um, we have, my daughter's blowing up my phone. We have, oh, having that safe space means that it's a trusted space. What I was going to say earlier was, it's time we start to give ourselves some credit. It's time to acknowledge and own these attributes that we have blossomed within ourselves by these codes being reactivated. And so that's a space that we're familiar with. Now let's take another aspect of it, of us, and let's bring it into this space where our masculine voice can speak in a trusted environment. Um, and he doesn't need to be coddled and held, and not that she did. I'm not saying that. It's more of the same thing, I think, with the feminine aspect, to be heard, and to really be heard, and not judged, and not, let me fix it. That's another thing I noticed over my transformation so far, because it's always a work in process, is that you always hear about, you tell a man something, he just wants to fix it. And the woman wants to be heard, right? But the truth is, it works the other way too. I think they call it the mother syndrome, right? And I get that a lot, and I realize they're coming from the same place. That's why I said at the beginning of this broadcast, I see a lot of this masculine evolution in my sisters. I see it in them. I see it by the things that they say and the things that they do, uh, which, I believe many of us have greater clarity in terms of what we can see visibility wise in the ethers, in the energetic field. So yeah, let me go back to before we get out of here. So I just want to encourage a dialogue with men. So if you know a man who would like to talk openly, uh, send them my direction. If you're a man and you want to talk openly uh, about your experiences and go deep, 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 come my way. Send me a message, something, uh, and I'll be glad to not only host or facilitate, but also to demonstrate, uh, with you, and tap into my own experiences that might be helpful and that type of thing. Um, there's there's definitely a big difference, and we know this, between the makeup of a feminine, of it, say, in general terms, because again, it doesn't always follow the physical gender. Um, but if you look at the number one topic, all right, sex. Okay, you got two totally different, uh, you know, two totally different animals there between the typical female and the typical male. Uh, the female part of us and the female that's incarnated typically isn't just, it's not typical for her to be dominated by the obsession of it all. Uh, and with the male, it's pretty much ingrained, from the get go. Um, and I could just give countless examples of this. Um, so I think, for my own understanding, as I would have been working through this over the years, especially this year, early this year, is to I guess, in a way you would say, allow my masculine voice to be heard by this feminine voice, my feminine voice, and say, this is what went down. This is what's happening, and getting into a space of no self judgment, because the imprint of that pure white light feminine is on us too. That's our judge as a man. That's our judge. You know, that's how this universe works, because the masculine energy in us, the builder, is inspired by that which brought him to the party, that which he is and created for the function of these physical experiences. Let's build it. And so everything that he does, that's who was judging him, even though in the end of the day it wasn't someone he's projecting out there that's judging him, it's himself. And let me tell you, as a man, why do you think a man worries about his penis size? Why do you think a man worries about his performance? Why do you think a man worries about how big his car is or how big his bank account is? At the end of the day, no matter how distorted, no matter what it looks like, something innate in him is wanting to express what inspires him. Impress, express, impress. You know, for all intents and purposes, the mother goddess. So, I know it's been a hell of a month. We're only 9, 10 days into it, and there's been a lot of energy moving since the first. Somebody, or actually more than one person, told me, if you think October was big, wait till November. And I just went, oh my God, here we go again. Are you serious? But there's no question that the opportunity that we have right now is not just calling on our masculine; it's calling on our feminine. Uh, in a environment of an expanding golden child energy that is very supportive and very reciprocative of our efforts as we take step by step by step. Um, but it's a time that we have an opportunity from both sides of the house to to be this space that people talk about, this supportive space, this space where there's no judgment, this space of pure compassion, so that these stories can be told, so that the coding can be given and received, and so that we can continue to accelerate the timelines that we've been doing for the last 10 years. Uh, it's getting, it's becoming more and more profound uh, but it's also becoming more and more simplistic. As we don't have all these doors to look into, now we have just a few, and it's coming down to two, and really it's two all the time. And you can put it in a lot of different ways. But I check myself every day by examining the things I say, because these programs are so subtle. Uh, am I comparing myself when I say, I don't like that dress, or his hair is funny, or, I mean, I know that sounds a little bit, uh, you know, silly, but it's true. Our prejudices and biases are up to be seen. It's not about are we a good person or not a good person. It's not about that. It's about recognizing how it's affected our communication, our language, our actions, and our lives. We are on. I believe have moved through something huge, and I believe this 1111 is a big part of that. Uh, and I feel like that we are on the other side of something like we've never been before. And the way we got through this, the way we got through to the other side, was by raising our level of compassion, reducing our judgment of self. Because when we don't judge ourselves, we don't judge anybody, right? And I believe the way we did this was, if you want to just put it that way, was through the heart. And that tells me, which isn't again something people haven't said, but again to experience it, that tells me that this is the way that we operate in this new earth. Everything goes through the heart. It's not just words, and it's not just bullshit. And that third energy is giving us situations and occurrences every single day, whether we like it or not, to prove to prove to ourselves, to establish that space where there is trust. You know, that old question of, do you trust yourself? Yes, we can do this. We can trust ourselves. And a good way to find out whether you trust yourself or not is, do you trust others? Do you trust others to be able to heal themselves? Do you trust others to be able to fix whatever it is that they're telling you about? Uh, we all have the same makeup. We all share the same access to infinite intelligence. And somehow or another, the human part of us is driving this thing. And I just want to sum it up and say again that we really haven't heard the masculine voice. We really haven't. You just go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and look at podcasts like I do. And every one of them, most of them, are hosted by a man. And I'm not throwing any shade at my brothers, and I've been there. I mean, I've been doing this for years. But what are we talking about? We're talking about, the sticks and stones. We're talking about the Illuminati. We're talking about all the bullshit and the fuckery. Why don't we talk about, how do you feel? How did it feel? What was it like, you know, to see yourself as deficient because of your endowment or deficient because of your performance? I mean, I believe that if we can hear these things in that space that we've already had, some time into developing, and we can really get some brave brothers up here and talk about some things, I believe that we can accelerate this even more than we already have. It's healthy, it's powerful. I want to be a part of it. I feel a shift coming. Um, you could say another phase coming, something like that. And I feel like it's uh, I got this earlier this year that when this time period was coming, um, as we kind of wove our way out of the old and into the new, that the masculine would be the last stitch into the old being equalized and the first one into the new earth. And what I mean by that is the action of the masculine, the last piece being the first piece into the new realm, which would make sense because the masculine part of us is the builder. Um, but I feel like that this is something that can be done quickly, and I'm going to put some stuff out on it, and I'll probably do a little thinking and decide what I would like to share that might be helpful about myself, and just see where it goes. I believe that we've moved into kind of into this new Earth atmosphere um, where it's not about instruction anymore. That served us. It's not about teaching anymore. That served us. And it's not that it's not still there, and it's not that some people might not need it, but it's our energy that speaks. And even if you're not speaking, like a tuning fork. So um, I feel like that I've talked enough. I appreciate everybody for 1 hour and 11 minutes sitting with me, and I look forward to more heart openings. And I would once again encourage any and all brothers that would like to come in and have a conversation, and not the normal conversation. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I want to talk about meat. I want to talk about the meat and bones. I want to talk about the guts and the blood and the sweat. I don't want to talk about the shit we've been talking about for the last 10 years. I don't want to talk about that anymore. Who gives a shit? You know, I don't want to do it. Or if you want to come on and I'll put some music on, you want to try to sing for the first time or whatever, let's just do stuff that we never were allowed to do. And just like our feminine aspects, step out and let's bring this balance, into a full equilibrium. All right. Don't forget about Soulogy Fest, Houston, Texas, December 8th, 9th, and 10th. It's starting to gain some steam, and I'm getting excited about it. And don't forget about SoulogyNetwork.com. This was something that was downloaded and it's been in play for a long, long time, and we were guided to get off of social media, and we're slowly transitioning. But there's something behind that. I don't really understand it all, but I know it's a lot bigger than Soulogy. So you guys have a nice evening. I'll see y'all